I know it's one of those messages you get excited about. John chapter 5, we've been here before. It's been a while, but we have been here. And I'm just going to be in the first 16 verses, and I'm probably not going to read them all. I really want to cover quite a bit of ground today. I'm kind of taking an undertaking here because I also want to be in the book of Luke chapter 10, and I want to be in Galatians, and then Second Corinthians, and maybe Ezekiel 47. I'm going to cover these over in a synopsis, so don't think I'm going to read all that. You're like, dang, I'm not reading all that. But I want to connect some dots for you, and the best that I can. And some of that is just, hey, I'm going to give you some verses, some addresses, and just write them down. Go home, read them if you want. I encourage you to make sure what I'm telling you is the truth. I would say, like, don't take my word for it. I think I'm a trustworthy guy. I believe I'm a trustworthy guy. But I really would like you to be convinced by your own work and by you laboring in the word and in prayer and engaging yourself with God yourself. And so I posted that this week. I don't know if some of you saw it, but I said, it says a lot of believers, I'm probably paraphrasing it. A lot of believers don't have fellowship, don't talk with God. They come together to talk about God, or they talk with others about God. And I would just encourage them to make sure you are praying and seeking God out and having that relationship. There's nothing more important than that. So, and then when we come together and talk about it, it's just a bonus, and it causes, man, I don't know that part. I'm gonna go into prayer and learn that too, and get into the Word, and that's just good stuff. Anyways, so in John chapter 5, let's pray. How about we pray first, huh? That'd be a good idea. Father, man, we are so excited to be in your Word. We want to go ahead and hear it, understand it, apply it to our lives, that it would bring forth fruit, not just for our sake, even more importantly, for the sake of the kingdom, causing others to come to know you. God, we want our lives to be shining examples to those around us. That's our desire, is that, God, we would be that example, revealing your Son, Jesus Christ, the gospel, God, truly carrying his name, not in vain, but with great purpose, conviction, and intentionality. And so, God, may what we read here today cause us to be such people. And we pray this. Amen. All right, John chapter 5 is going to find a familiar story, and it's about the man who is a paralytic. He's been a paralytic for some time, and he's laying beside this pool, but the pool of Bethesda, and he's just sitting there, and he's waiting, and every time the water is stirred, there's the legend that first one to step in would get healed. If you ever did some research on this, they don't really know whether that was the case or not. There's like a lot of myth and legend to it, but it does bring about an interesting idea of living water, because Jesus, it's talked about in John chapter 4 and John chapter 7, right in between John 5, we have this idea of this water just sitting there. It's not living, it's not moving, it's not doing anything. But all of a sudden, they thought it would have healing properties when it would get stirred up. All of a sudden, something's moving and it's causing movement. It's like, where is it coming from? And people have speculated that there was maybe a crack at the bottom, that somehow, like when there would be like rain flood water at certain times of the year, there'd be something run underneath and it would just kind of burst up and it would cause it to move. And superstitions can arrive from natural phenomena. How many know that? It happens all the time. But I love what Jesus is doing here. He's coming to this place. But if you really want to go ahead, but before we really get into the miracle, I really do want to touch on living water. This idea of living water, I guess we can find it in John chapter 4. But before we do, I will just say this. Can I just reference Ezekiel 47? And you can read it. It's just verses 1 through 12. Okay, just read it. It's amazing. It's wonderful. There's other spots I can talk to you about. But this idea of this water coming from the temple of God, and it starts as a trickle, and it turns into this river that you cannot cross on foot. And when he couldn't cross on foot, the angel brings him to the side and says, "Hey, pay attention to what did you see? Tell me what you saw. Give an account of it." And he starts describing it, and these fishermen, these trees. It's teeming with life. And there's like nobody's seeming for want. Everybody's got what they need, and there's more than enough. And then there were these marshes and these swamps, these places that guess what? They didn't get healed. It says these waters did not get healed. And this is kind of the comparison I really want to see in this place today. I want to talk about it. Are you a source of living water, or are you just kind of one of those, are you just a swamp? Like the idea is there are many of those in life. There's even those in the Christian vein. where you can go and say like, oh yeah, they're near the river. They're near that river that has life. Oh yeah, we're this, but they really don't have life. They have the appearance of life. Jeremiah speaks of such people who say that my people have done two evils, and one of them was is that they had forsaken the living water and have turned to these cracked cisterns. Now, if you go ahead and you go back, Jesus first mentions living water in John chapter 4, verse 10. He says, if you knew the gift of God and who was saying to you, give me a drink, you would ask him and he would give you living water. So what is living water? You ever look it up? There's going to be examples, but I want to give you one example, and it's a really fun example. And I think I'm still going to explain it, but I feel like you guys are probably going to tie it together all on your own. It says, it is water, and I wrote this, it is water that is unprocessed and sourced directly from nature with all of its natural benefits attached. Spring water is an example of this. It flows through rock. Think about rock, which removes impurities while leaving behind beneficial minerals. Think about that. Water that flows through rock and still is pure and has all of its benefits. Who do we know to be a rock in Scripture? Jesus. Who do you know to be living water in Scripture, according to John chapter 7, I think verse 37? Holy Spirit, right? And you get to John 16:7, and he says that, what does he say about the Holy Spirit? It says the Holy Spirit, and obviously it's even John chapter 7, the Holy Spirit comes through who? Jesus. So this water, this living water coming through a rock into the world out in living water. And this idea of this water source coming through a rock, it's like this is Holy Spirit and Jesus just kind of coming together. And so I think you guys understand. It's like, so you get like, where do you get that from? Well, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4, you can get that picture of the wilderness. It is very explicitly said in that verse about how that rock in the wilderness, and for them was what? Where the water flowed out of, where if the living water flows through a rock, removing the impurities, giving it all the benefit, giving everybody who would drink of it all of its benefits. How many of you like going drinking from water from Christ and getting all the benefits of Christ? We just talked about spiritual blessing. But they would get all the benefits. And so we have this idea of a rock being opened up in the wilderness and water flowing out enough to feed a multitude, not just the people, but the animals. They were close, if not more than 1 million people in the wilderness at that time with that. Now, can you imagine a water source that is able to feed not just them, but their animals? This is no just little 1-foot stream going down the way. This isn't, no, that's like massive rushing either. I believe God is taking care of it. But the thing is Jesus has shown himself over and over again that I am the source of this living water. The only way you're going to get the Holy Spirit is through Christ. And so with that all said, that is what a true source of living water is. I wanted to lay that foundation really quick for you because I really do need you to understand the difference between, I would say, systems, religious systems, legalistic systems, and versus what Christ and what we are meant to be. So with that being said, let's go ahead and look at the story and finally get into John chapter 5. After this, a Jewish festival took place, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. By the sheep gate in Jerusalem, there was a pool called Bethesda in Aramaic, which has 5 colonnades. With these lay, listen, a large number of the disabled, blind, lame, and paralyzed. So you can understand that there were a lot of people looking for the same thing, but looking for healing. But there was this, listen to this in verse 5, there was one man who had been there. He was disabled for how many years? 38 years. And when Jesus saw him lying there and realized he had been there a long time, he said to him, listen to this question. Do you want to get well? Do you want to be healed? Now, on the surface, this sounds like a really dumb question, doesn't it? I've been trying to get healed. It's why I'm by the pool. I'm trying to get healed. Of course I want to get healed. But Jesus asks the question, and I think it's a fitting question. How you know it's a fitting question is because of the man's response. He says, do you want to get healed? Notice what the man does not say. He does not say yes. Did you notice he doesn't give that answer to Jesus? He does not give any such direct answer. Although we know he wants to. How many out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth? And what does this man speak? He says, sir, I have no one to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up, but while I'm coming, someone goes down ahead of me. This speaks massively into what this man is feeling. And this is the thing. Jesus is not some guy who's impersonal. Jesus wants to get personally involved in everybody's life. How many know that? He loves you. He cares about you. My wife just spoke on that. The idea of heart. He was interested in your heart, not your wallet. He's interested in your heart. And he's interested in what's going on in this man because he's not enough to just to get healed. He goes, I want to deal with you and what you're feeling, and I acknowledge that. And you can tell just by this man's response, I have no one. So first thing, he's lonely. I got nobody. I've got nobody. Not only do I have nobody to help. I am lonely and helpless, which equals a whole lot of hopelessness. I don't have the ability to get in. I'm without help. Now, I don't know. You can speculate. Maybe this guy's just been there and others don't want to go in because many Jewish people saw that as a pagan place. So like that's not of God. They wouldn't go in there. They wouldn't go near it. So that would even condone such a pagan practice to put your belief in some superstition. It could have been because of this man's cynicism. He's just a cynical man. Like, yeah, after 38 years, you might be a little cynical. I mean, you ever met somebody who's got maybe some long-term health issues and they battle depression and things like that, and they get like negative on life. Maybe he drove them away. It doesn't matter. What matters is this man is alone and there's nobody to help him. How many of you can ever feel that way? Alone and helpless. Like, I got no one to help me. I'm doing this on my own. Life's a struggle. I'm doing it by myself. I'm trying, but you know what? There's just no one to help me. I want to get to the other side, but I don't know how. And that's what the church is supposed to be, the bridge to the other side, not the access, because that's Christ, but the idea is like we walk with you across the bridge. What I'm going to tell you people, like, you want to invite someone to church, do it. But can I just say, if you invite them, walk with them. You say, if I'm inviting you, it means like, I'm going to help you get there. I'm not going to say, oh, Jesus is the answer. Go that way. I'm not pointing you to Jesus. I am doing both. I'm pointing you. And can I show you how to get there? I'm going to walk with you. And that's what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be the people who drop what we're doing to help. That people don't feel lonely, who don't feel helpless, to give them hope. But here is this man sitting by himself, alone. Can you imagine day in and day out the thoughts he had to have? The boredom, the boredom he had to be walking in. I mean, the meaningless of life. I am literally sitting here and I'm never going to get healed. I'm sitting here for no reason. I'm pretty sure this man has already come to the conclusion, I am not going to get better. There's no way I'm getting in. You're like, so why doesn't he leave? What other option does he have? What else can he do? And I want to ask, I was like, we ask the world, like, they're looking. There are people who are looking for an answer, and it may not be Jesus because they just don't know. This man don't go look. He's like, I don't know who Jesus is. This is early on in Jesus' ministry. Either way, there are people who just go, even if they hear about him, I don't know if he's the answer. They're like, but I'm looking for an answer. And you've got to be a person who gives them enough reason to turn to Jesus to be maybe even a possible answer. Don't wait for them to go, I think Jesus is the answer. No, don't wait for that. You go in there and you show them like, hey, I'm going to show you. Look at my life. Imitate me as I imitate Christ, is what Paul wrote. Be the example. Become all things to all men that you might save some. Be the example. Let your light so shine. You see, because there's this other group in this story. It says that day was the... I better read verse 8. Verse 8 is pretty important, isn't it? Jesus says, get up. Pick up your mat and walk. Instantly, the man got well, picked up his mat, and started to walk. Now, that day was the Sabbath. How dare Jesus heal on the wrong day? Like, according to somebody, like, why is this important? It's like, I want to read all this to really get this to you. I'm going to give you some background on this. This is how horrible legalism gets. Okay, listen. And it says, and so the Jews said to the man who had been healed, this is the Sabbath. The law prohibits you from picking up your mat. And he replied, the man who made me well told me, pick up your mat and walk. And they said, who is this man who told you pick up your mat and walk? And they asked, but the man did not know who it was who healed him, because Jesus slipped away into the crowd that was there. So the thing is, it's like they're like just angry. They're like, imagine this. Someone walks up to you 38 years. Like, I've been paralyzed for 38 years. A man does a miracle, and I can walk now after 38 years. And you're concerned about me carrying a mat. You're not curious about the other thing. Like, how did that happen? You're like, no, like, why are you carrying your bed? Like, that seems pretty natural. But that's legalism. It's like watching what you do and what you don't do, not the work of God in your life. They're not looking for the observational thing of like, man, I wonder if God's really in your life. Like, wow, like, you're shining bright. You're doing great. God is working. I can see the evidence. Yeah, but you're not perfect. And so and they start ridiculing you. They're not doing this first one. They're doing the second one. Often if someone is cynical and critical of your walk, often in their own life, they are definitely failing and they do not have a connection to what true religion is. And I will use that. I'll tell you what, if you want to be a Christian that gets people's attention these days, we used to have this culture that says, I'm not religious and spiritual. Oh man, go back to religious. It's so much more fun. Because there's so many stigmas with religion, right? That word. Religion is, oh, da, 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 da. And they're like, it's do's and don'ts and this and that. And I go, that is a false religion. Can I tell you about my religion? My religion is Christianity. My religion tells me to love my neighbor as myself. My Christianity says bear one another's burdens. My religion says care for the widow, for the orphan, keep myself unspotted from the world, to go ahead and control my tongue, to build you up, to lead others to Christ, to be the light, the salt of the earth, to go ahead and love my enemy even. My religion is an amazing religion. It is not a legalistic. Religion is not bad. Religion has been attached to things because men have attached it in a horrible way. Men have done horrible things, and I know religious institutions have created a religious picture that is ugly. But I'll tell you, if you want to go ahead and you want to start engaging, wake a person up and they'll start debating. You've got a conversation going. You say, oh, I'm spiritual. Like, well, that goes so broad down anymore. Oh yeah, me too. Like, well, yeah, but I'm different. See, I say you're just fighting a different battle. I figure just pick the first battle. Yes, I'm religious. As in, my religion affects the way I live in a profound way. Yes, Christianity is my religion. Jesus is my religion. He is my system of values of what I desire to do and not do. He is the one I want to follow and look like. That is my religion, and it's written clearly in the Bible. And I am sorry if religion has hurt you. I'm sorry if you saw bad examples and you see it in the church about things they're adding and making about do's and don'ts. I am very sorry about that, but that is not what was intended. There's certain things we pick up and certain things we'll say, no, that's not true. Throw that aside. And so here we are. We have this man being challenged on this legalistic attitude. And if you go ahead and you look at like Jewish writings in the old, even in Jesus's day, here's a couple of the things they were debating about whether you could do or not. They even debated whether you should be able to carry a needle in your pocket, because you might go and bring it out and start sewing if you got a hole on you. Like, if you had a fake wooden leg, they were debating whether a man should even be allowed to put it on in the morning because that's work. How dumb! You're like, wait, you think that's the worst? Wait, there's more. It gets dumber. And this one is bound. This example was in 1992. So if you think this has died, it has not died. And you're like, wait, that was like 58 years ago. I know it's not 2020. For those of you who are bad at math, it's like the younger generation. Man, that's old. But anyway, I was 5 years old in 1992. But anyways, there was this building. So this family was renting, and the place they were in caught on fire. They're Jewish. They run out of the house, and before they make a phone call, they start debating whether they should. Because to have a phone call, to have a phone go ahead and send a signal, is there's an electrical spark. And if you understand about Jewish laws on the Sabbath, they wouldn't even turn a light switch on because the spark is like a fire, and they are not allowed to light a fire on the Sabbath. So here they are going, wait, is it a law? Would we be sinning if we called the fire department right now? So guess what they did? They walked around looking for their Jewish rabbi. Asked him first. He goes, they do find him, they ask him, and guess what? After 30 minutes of looking and deliberating, it would have been a sin. Hallelujah. Glad they didn't make a phone call. But in that 30 minutes, 2 other buildings caught on fire. This is what legalism does. It not only destroys, and this isn't even their home. That's what they were renting. This destroys other people's lives. And this is what's going on in this story. You got this legalism here. Do you notice what they're interested in? They're interested in like being police officers. But Luke 11:46, it gives you a really clear picture of it. He says, and woe to you, you lay up so many burdens upon men, but you yourself won't even you won't even lift a finger to help them. He calls the religious out for what they're like. You go ahead and you say, keep this, do this, don't do that. And they're like, and it is so hard, so impossible, because there were 613 laws to Jewish law. And then these guys just had the audacity to go ahead and add about over 2,000 more laws of their own man-made tradition that they had to keep. How many of you are keeping track of 2,600 laws? Good luck. I don't even know if I could keep 613. I'm going, don't triple it or quadruple it on me. I wasn't even doing the first 10 that well. Come on. I don't know. I had to say that there. But anyways, this gives you this idea of like, okay, we got this contrast, religion versus legalism. We got Jesus on one side walking in and getting his hands dirty. He's going into a place that maybe was frowned upon. And he often did that, didn't he? He went into the homes of sinners, and they even, toward the end of his life, around his way to Jericho, little short man named Zacchaeus gets up in a tree, and he says, I'm coming to eat at your house. And the Pharisees are still complaining. Why is he going to eat that sinner's house? We've had enough examples in the scriptures to know why he ain't going to eat at your house. You guys are jerks. You don't wash his feet. You go and judge him. Every now and then you're there to go ahead and defy him at every turn, to disprove him and to illegitimize him, to destroy him. Why would he come to your house? Because you're righteous? By what standard? If he's not on your side, then he's a sinner. Why are you even inviting him into your house if you think he's a sinner? See how hypocritical they were? You shouldn't be in a sinner's company. That would make you unrighteous. Wait, if you're calling him a sinner, then why are you inviting him in? Wouldn't that make you unclean? They didn't seem to care about any of that, did they? They just wanted him out of the picture. This is, again, what legalism does. It just distorts your view 100%. But notice in verse 16, I'm jumping a little bit ahead, I know. It says, the Jews began persecuting Jesus because he was doing these things on the Sabbath. If there was one thing Jesus did and was persecuted for more than any other thing, it was because he did something on the Sabbath. They got him for other things, but this was like the number one thing. You'll see it over and over again, how Sabbath is mentioned. And we've actually talked about that recently in the Men's Connector, about how he's Lord of the Sabbath. He's like, you made it this, but what's he claiming when he says, I'm Lord of the Sabbath? Okay? I make up the law. I make the rules, and he's basically saying, I set up the guidelines of Sabbath already. That's calling himself Lord, and you have gone outside them. So he's just bringing it back into the original design. Pretty fun stuff. But here's the thing. So what does Galatians chapter 6, verse 2 say? If you read it, I'm just going to turn there. Carry one another's burdens. Carry one another's burdens. That's why I said these Pharisees, this man has been there for 38 years. You want to know what they never did? Walked up to him and said, how can we help you? You're obviously poor. You can't work. We're supposed to take care of the poor. How can we help you? How can we give you hope? We can walk. So how can we help you, man who cannot walk? How can we help? We love you. We want to point you to Christ. We want to help you get into that synagogue so you can hear the word of God too. Is there something we can do to help you? Is there someone you know? No. I was like, okay, well then we're going to go ahead and we're going to find help to get you in. How many are like, no, that you don't find these conversations happening. And I love that Jesus doesn't just pick him up and say, here, I'll get you to synagogue. He goes, I'm going to enable you to go there on your own. He truly helps the man. And of course, we know that in the book of Acts, Peter and John kind of mimic the same thing. Silver and gold I don't have, but what I do have I give unto you. Get up and walk. Man gets up and walks, goes right into the temple. See? God is always enabling people to get to him. I wonder, is the church trying to do the same? Carry one another's burdens. In this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ. What is the law? People have asked this question. What is the law of Christ? If I had to put it down into one word, it's love. Simple as that. Because when Jesus talks about the greatest commandments, what does he say? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. 1 John, all that you will find it in 1 Corinthians, I believe, also mentions the law of Christ. But you will notice that it is love. And it fits within the context. Because carrying one another's burdens. What is the law of Christ? Love. And in 1 John, I give you no new commandment. But this commandment I give you is this: love one another. You fulfill the law of Christ by loving God and loving people. And we can find this in the scriptures. You can find it about, it says, when it talks about the sheep and the goats, and he said, well, how have we loved you? He said what? When you did it for the least of these, you did it unto me. Love. Love people. Just love them. How? Carry a burden. It don't got to be a big one. Most people will understand if you can't be there all the time. Most people. I will say there's that small area, like they'll keep trying to take advantage of you. I totally get that. And you're like, oh, you don't know the people I do. Trust me, I've met them too, okay? I have dealt with them. You just love them the best you can. Don't let them redefine love. You simply walk in love. If you can give 10 minutes of your day, give 20. That's like what? You can go 1 mile, go. But you don't need to do that much. Just do something. I know in our church sometimes I'm not really ever a part of this, but one thing we do is when people are out of commission, we like to have the ladies gather up and they get a list. And I know Sharon does that. My wife's helped coordinate it. It's like the meals. We actually get meals for people. And we kind of get them over there every other day for them and the whole family. And I always think like, man, what an amazing ministry. But also there's part of me in my head going, it's not really that much. Like, can we do more? I think we should be able to do more. But I'd say like that's that wrestling way. We all understand we wish we could do more. And that's a good desire. But it's like, man, you're doing what you can. Isn't that love? If you're doing all that you can, you're doing what we know how. And most people will, wow, it's sad that even doing something like that, I'm not trying to demean it. I'm trying to really help understand that something like that speaks massive volumes. People are like, wow, you actually took time out of your day to make this, do this, drive over, give it to me. Like, wow, that's amazing fun. It took us maybe an hour or two of your life. Bear one another's burdens. In this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ. And listen to what it continues to say. For if anyone considers himself to be something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. What does that mean? Have an accurate view of yourself. Are you strong? We can obviously go, I'm strong in the Lord. Well, let's see if you really are. How are you bearing one another's burdens? I want to see if you're really strong. Your actions should tell me if you're strong, not your own opinion. I'm strong in the Lord. Good for you. I'm glad you think that. But is it true? I hope you're strong in the Lord, but I want to know. Do your actions speak it? Do you help others? Do you go ahead and seek to love others? The thing is any of us can make a claim. And if you are strong, know this. Listen to the next part. Let each person examine his own work, and then he can take pride in himself alone and not compare himself with someone else, for each person will have to carry his own load. So here's the thing. I'll give you a few points. Number one, even if you are strong, you have no way to boast in your strength. Your strength came from the Lord. You are in the position you are in because of what the work of God has done in your life. When God is revealed, not concealed. I was going to say conceal. I was like conceal. When God has revealed truth to you, and it gets into your heart, and it empowers you to live free in a new way, that is not you. That has been given unto you. That can be found. Of course, we can go and look at that later. Maybe we will. But the thing is we got to ask: are you carrying those burdens? Are you looking to? Are you really strong? And if you are strong, what are you? Who are you attributing your strength to? You see, your life, your actions reveal who you truly are, not your own opinion. A good tree will bear good fruit. A tree doesn't have to cry out, I'm healthy. We can look at a tree, walk up to it, see its fruit, and we'll know. And even if it's bad fruit, the tree could cry out like a Disney movie. In a Disney movie, all it wanted, oh, I'm healthy. No, I'm healthy. We're like, no, you're not. And they'll be like, no, you can't judge me. Yes, I can. You're crying out healthy. But if I partake of that fruit and I start walking your way and listening to your speech, I will become bitter. I will become envious. I will become greedy. I will become cynical. I will become depressed just like you. And that's why I say, man, when people are down and out, please don't find people who are like-minded. So many people, they go and find people to complain with, and they call that understanding. Oh, they just get me. No, they just want to stay where they are, and they pulled you in, and you're all going to stay where you are. Bound, chained, stuck. What's going to feel like? Earlier this week, too, I went ahead and I was sitting there reading my Bible at my desk, and all of a sudden I feel like this idea, like this popped in my heart, turn around, and I turned around, and we have a black lab, and he's just laying in his crate. We have a crate for him to sleep at night because he's like 1 year old today, and he's like a puppy, and we're like, I don't think we can trust him alone for that long. I think he would be like, I'm bored. I'm going to start doing things he should not do. So we do that. But I left the crate door open that day, as I often do, and I'm like, this guy has anywhere he can go, and guess where he was laying? In his crate. Well, it's because he feels a sense of security. I go, don't we all find security in what is familiar? But just because it feels familiar and feels secure doesn't mean it's right. And that's what the Lord began to show me. He goes, how many believers are sitting in an open jail cell? The door's open. There's no chains. There's no guard. You can walk out, but they willingly just sit here and go, well, I'm just stuck. I think someone should walk in and say, no, you're not. Come out. I'm like, maybe that's like not something you can do. You can start speaking and like Jesus comes into their life and he kind of does the whole Lazarus moment. Like, Stephen, come forth out of your own prison cell that's been wide open, and because I have defeated death in the grave, I don't know why you're still in there. Oh, yeah, I forgot that you did that. Like, I think Christians need to be reminded, like, he really has won. There's nothing that you got to worry about. Now, the thing is listen to this. It says each one will carry his own, will have to carry his own. This can get really confusing when you start seeing this compared to, wait, we're supposed to bear one another's burdens. And now we're supposed to look at our own work and not so we can take pride in our own work and not compare ourselves with someone else. For each one will have to carry his own load. What is he talking about? It's called stewardship. Be faithful with what you've got. Look at your own life. Are you even able to carry your own load? Because it points back, if anyone considers himself something when he's nothing, he deceives himself. Take a good look at your own life. Are you really carrying your own load well? Or are you just thinking you're carrying your own load well? And if you are, keep your eyes on Jesus. Don't compare yourself with somebody else. How many know comparison is one of the greatest thieves of all joy? You want to look at your life? I think I was telling the youth group that on Wednesday. I said, do you know that this is pretty interesting statistic? You see parent-child relationship health is going drastically up. Like most teens are really, really satisfied with the relationship they have with their parents. And you would think it would do this, but then there's this line that drops down drastically. And it says, know what that line is that goes downward? Most teenagers are very unsatisfied as with their life as a whole. You can have all these healthy relationships and have all this going downward. And I go, I really do feel that, man, like, it all started around 2012. Social media got popular, the phone got popular. Because why? We have so much access to look at other people's lives and start wondering, what am I doing fine? What am I doing fine? And I would just say, get your eyes off of other people and get yourself into the eyes of Christ. Just fix your eyes upon Jesus, the author and finisher of your faith. Run like he ran. Follow him. Did you know that if you are experiencing loneliness or bitterness or anger, I told them this on Wednesday night too. I said that you only have to do one thing and you will drop, loneliness will drop 30%. And you're 30% less likely to be lonely. You are 40-something%, I can't remember, less, and it keeps going up. You are even like 57% less likely to fall into alcoholism, 62% less likely to go ahead and be addicted to pornography, and 67% less likely to sleep with somebody outside of marriage. All you got to do is one thing. And I go, how many would take you? How many would live life? I got to do one thing and I can improve my odds. Yeah, and I go, read and engage with your Bible 4 or more times a week. That's what they found. They did a study with 40,000 participants. If you know anything about studies, usually you got to do about 5,000, and you will only be off by 1% or 2. And there's a lot of like information in there how they did it. They do explain it really well. I don't have time to go into it. But isn't it amazing when you really start not just going through like brothers and sisters, and you start going and you just go, oh, engage with my Bible. No, you skim through your Bible. You did not engage with it. But if you really sit down and engage and try to get it into you, those who do that 4 or more times, they notice that 1, 2, and 3, there was very little change. But at 4, all of a sudden the mark starts going up, where people are getting broken free from chains of addictions and bad habits and finding forgiveness. And what? Huh? Just from this one thing? Isn't it amazing when you keep your eyes on Christ, what is possible? When you keep your eyes on the truth, you shall know the truth shall. For who the Son sets free is free indeed, and we know that Jesus is truth. Now, to go further into that vein of comparing yourself among yourselves, instead of comparing himself with someone else, go to 2 Corinthians chapter 10. Trying to wrap this up. Verse 12. So you just got to go back one book. Just rewind. Verse 12 says, for we don't dare classify or compare ourselves with some who commend themselves. But listen to this. See, listen to what these guys are doing. Paul is talking about. It's very corrective. Did I say what chapter? 2 Corinthians 10? Okay, I wasn't sure. I know I said 2 Corinthians. I'm like, wait, did I tell you what chapter? And you're like, where? What chapter? Sorry. Yeah, I'm now in verse 12 still. But in measuring themselves by themselves and comparing themselves to themselves, they are not wise. There is no wisdom into looking at another person's life for your spiritual barometer. You want to go look like, well, I'm more spiritual than them. That's going to put you in a place of pride. Or you go, oh, I'm never going to be as spiritual as them. That's going to destroy and shipwreck your faith. Just don't. If you can look at somebody's faith who is greater than yours, maybe like they're like spiritual, like walking farther, and you can look at them and it inspires you, like, man, I want to get there and I see their life, so I know it's possible because they're there. If you get that, like it inspires you, that's fine. That means you got a healthy thing going on in you. But if you look outward and go, oh, I'm never going to get there, you need to run back to the feet of Jesus and start getting your vision corrected. Something in you has got you trapped and thinking it's not possible, that you can't be free. Dysfunctional people can't celebrate the victories of others. Healthy people can get excited for those who have wins, even if they are going ahead and they're feeling defeated. Possible to live in both worlds. That's a whole other message. Nothing. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Sorrow, weep with those who weep. But anyway, we, however, will not boast beyond measure, but according to the measure within the area of ministry God has given us. You've seen this, which even reaches to you. For we are not overextending ourselves if we had not reached you, since we have come to you with the gospel of Christ. We are not boasting beyond measure about other people's labor. On the contrary, we have the hope that as your faith increases, our area of ministry will be greatly enlarged, so that we may preach the gospel to the regions beyond you without boasting about what has already been done in someone else's area of ministry. And then listen to verse 7. So let the one who boasts boast in the Lord. For it is not the one who commending himself who is approved, but the one the Lord approves. You see, again, I don't care what you say about yourself. The question is what does God say about you? Isn't that who we're going to stand before anyways? Oh, I think I'm doing great. I think that's great that you think that, but don't go so much like, I'm doing so great. I don't know. I'm just good. It's like, whoa, careful. I'm glad you're doing great, but keep running with endurance. Fight the good fight of faith and listen to the warning of Jesus. Watch and pray. Be vigilant and pray, because the enemy is looking and you can fall into temptation. Don't get prideful. Don't overestimate. Have this. But notice, he has over and over, he's like, I'm not comparing ourselves to other people. He's like, that's just dumb. He goes, one, they got a very, very bad skewed perception of what they're doing and who they are. And how many know the leaders that were doing such things in the church of Corinth were causing so much disruption, so much pain, and so much division. There was no health. But then you get these people who are like Paul, and he goes, man, I do hope you grow. He goes, and we have the hope that your faith increases. Even though he's like, even though we're not there doing the work, we do hope, because now then we don't have to pay attention to you like this. We can move on. and be supplied even by you to go ahead and use this place as a base of operations to go out and preach the gospel where it's not been preached yet. We don't have a desire to set up camp and go ahead and go to another church and it's already been founded and go, oh, look what I've built. That's what he's saying when he says we aren't going at the end when he says without boasting about what someone else has already done in their area of ministry. Like, oh, look what I no. He's going, we're going somewhere where that can't even be, that's not even a possibility because there's going to be nothing there. But he's going, isn't that what we did here in Corinth? And you'll see how Paul speaks over and over again. He's like how he has not wronged them, how he has loved them, how he goes, the only wrong I ever did to you, I guess, is that I came and ministered to you and I took nothing from you. Forgive me. And he's being sarcastic. Forgive me of this wrong. I am so sorry I hurt you. Because everybody there knows like they were using them. He goes, I never used you. I loved you. And I want to ask, are you one of them? Are you a person who goes ahead and actually bears the burdens of those around you? Are you not concerned about what others think and about trying to figure out where you're at? You're just going before the Lord. I love 1 Corinthians chapter 4. Like, well, how do I measure myself? Well, let's just go. I'll show you. I like what Paul has got some amazing wisdom. How many know that? But when it ever comes upon this idea, I'm going to give you two spots in 1 Corinthians chapter 4. I'm going to start in verse 1, just because I love that it got this idea of faithfulness. A person should think of us in this way, as servants of God and managers of the mystery of God, a steward of the mystery of God. So they're like, this isn't even ours. God gave it to us. In this regard, it is required for stewards to be found faithful. And listen to this. And some of the, well, you're not being faithful of what you people can say that about you. How many know that? They can judge your life and say what looks good, what doesn't, get involved. But listen to what Paul says. He doesn't burden himself down of what others think. And I would encourage you to do the same. It is of little importance to me that I should be judged by you or any human court. He's going, I don't really care. In fact, I don't even judge myself. He goes, why? Because my judgment's probably skewed. We just looked at that. He goes, you might think you're something when you're actually nothing. For I am not conscious of anything against myself, but listen to this also. He doesn't acquit himself. He goes, but I'm not justified by this. It is the Lord who judges me. What's he trying to say? He's going, I bring myself before the Lord and let him judge me. And I know he does this in a humble estate. Not going, no, only stop judging me. Only the Lord can judge me. You ever hear people say that? Only the Lord can judge me. You're like, that's very prideful the way you said that. And that is kind of scary that you want to go ahead and shell yourself up that way. But it's like, I know that Paul, when he does, he goes, I'm before the Lord and I seek him out and I ask, where do I go? What do I do? Is there anything in me? He is constantly inspecting himself before the Lord. And I would pray you would do the same. But the thing is you got to remember again that your strength doesn't come from self. Where you're at, what you're doing, all of that. Please don't think of yourself as something special. You are special in the eyes of God. You are precious in his eyes. But notice, even if you have giftings today, in which everyone does, in verse 7, I'm actually read the last part of verse 6. The purpose is that none of you will be arrogant, favoring one person over another. For who makes you so superior? Like, what makes you so important? What do you have that you didn't receive? That's a good question to ask, right? If in fact you did receive it, why do you boast as if you had not received it? As in, this has truly been given to you by Christ. Why are you acting and living like you attained this by your own ability, your own strength, your own will? You're not. It's like, no, God gave you everything you have. Rejoice. And that's why he even writes later again, as we read in Galatians, let the one who boast in the Lord. Why? Because he gave you everything. And it's an amazing, beautiful thing that you have, the many blessings you have. But again, I want to go and say, do you recognize what you're standing in? That you are superior, you are blessed in a superior way. You're like, what does this have to do with the story before? Everything. Because if you don't know what you're standing in and how it's been given to you, how you are walking in a place of honor and privilege, you will never extend a hand to help because you'll never think you are able to, or you think you don't have to. You've got to have a very sober judgment, a very fine line. You are walking the straight and narrow. And if you do that, you will be like Jesus, getting into people's lives and saying, like, get up and walk, as in, I'm going to help you get to Christ. And you're like, if you want to go ahead and let's finish here. I told you Luke chapter 10. I want to finish there. I told my wife this week, I said, do you want to know what? I am pretty confident in all my years of ministry. And this is pretty crazy. In all my years of ministry. And I started preaching in 2003. Before I even graduated high school, I started doing things in youth group. But anyway, I can't recall a time in 22 years that I have ever preached anything out of the parable of the Good Samaritan. I always found it weird. But I was sitting there reading it, and she starts thinking, she goes, I know, I've never heard you preach out of it. And I go, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm confident in this one. So I'm going there today, not because I'm like, well, I haven't done it, I better do it. It's like, no, it actually felt applicable today. I was like, I actually get to use this. I get excited over dumb little things like this. But listen, how many know the parable of the Good Samaritan? We have the Good Samaritan law is found because of this. As in, what is the Good Samaritan law in a nutshell? If you have the power to do right, to help someone, what do? Do it. But notice in this story, which I don't have time to cover the whole thing, but I do want to go ahead and touch on it. So we got a few men that Jesus speaks about. And I find it very interesting that this story comes right after the disciples come back and they got to do some amazing things and partake in the work of the kingdom. And Jesus says, hey, you're blessed because of this. You're getting to be, your name is written down, da, 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 da. And all of a sudden some religious leader shows up and says, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Like, I feel like these are kind of connected. Like, why don't I get to be a part of that? Like, I'm the religious one who's keeping all the laws. Why do they get to? It's like, da, 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 da. But obviously he's standing up to test him, as it says. And of course, he gives him the greatest commandment: love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And if he says, what does he want to do? He goes, oh, great. I genuinely really need to know who's my neighbor. How many know he's not asking like that? I want to know who my neighbor is. I want to make sure I'm loving everybody that I'm supposed to. That is not it. Because it says here, but wanting to justify himself, as in, I'm already doing it. Isn't that what we just talked about in Galatians chapter 6? I'm already bearing the blows of others. I am fulfilling the law of Christ, wanting to justify your life. And if that's what you are quick to do, even in your mind, then I just say, you probably need to repent. And how do you know that? Not just because it is. Been there. I have been in my mind rushing, like, oh, do I have this? And I find myself trying to defend myself. Like, why am I trying to do this? I feel like that means I'm being prideful, trying to not have a problem. I probably have a problem. He asked him, who is my neighbor? And Jesus goes ahead, he takes up the question. He actually answers it. And he gives him the story, and it's talking about a man going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. And so we know this man's likely a Jew. And he gets robbed, beaten, thrown in a ditch. And the first man comes by, and it's a priest. And the priest sees him and walks by on the other side. And the second guy comes by doing likewise. As a Levi walks around on the other side. But then there's a third guy, the Samaritan. And in any story of a Jew, they would expect the Samaritan to be the devil, basically. Like, he's the enemy. They did not like him. This can go back into, I believe, 2 Chronicles chapter 28. You will find a prophet his name is Obed. And you can see the conflict and how he was going to wipe them all out. Like, they are just always at odds with each other. It's really crazy. But so they're like, no, these guys are impure, da, 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 da. And so Jesus all of a sudden talks about the Samaritan, and he picks up the man because he has compassion on him. And he throws him on his animal, and he takes him to the inn, and he takes care of it. Then he pays for extra care and says, I'll even pay for more. So he's taking care of this man at whose expense? His own, not at another's. But the things that you got to go ahead and look at is the first two. Why did they avoid the man? Well, they'd be ritually unclean if they touched somebody who is dead, and he might be dead. I don't even want to take that risk. But even if you touch somebody who's got blood, you get blood on you, you were ritually unclean. Well, I'm a priest. I'm a Levite. I got duties to do. I got rituals and traditions to fulfill, and those are important to God, so I can't do this. I would be unfit for 7 days. I'd have to go out and get cleansed and all this, and my peers would probably look like, how could you even do that? That's not for you. You aren't supposed to touch it. You're a priest. Like, there's that legalism again, popping its rear ugly head up. But then there's this man who should have no love and no care and no compassion, comes in and has the most love and the most compassion, the most care. Bearing a burden that is not his to bear, he could have easily said, not my people, not my problem. I wonder how many times we do that. I've been told this by a guy, and I know if I said his name, you'd know him, but I'm not going to say it. And I just say thank you, and I said no, we should. But on the inside, it bothers me that such a phrase is said, and the phrase is, "Man, I love you guys, you and your family and your church, because even though we don't go to your church, you guys have done so much for us. We go to another church, and you guys have done so much for us." And he lists the things we've done. And I just say, no problem. But in my head, I'm going, why does that matter? I know it don't matter to him. But with so many ago, if you're willing to say that, you know what that means? You have ran into that. Where most churches are like, not my church, not my problem. I know there's lines to be drawn. But most haven't offered any help. I want to say, like, are we those people quick to write others off? We just say, not my problem, nothing I can do. And we don't even try to find a way to help. Too often, we just don't help because of why? I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help. How about you go up and ask? They might have an answer. Oh, I don't really need help, but like, what are you struggling with? You struggle with things of daily life. Yeah, even cooking. I'm going to make you a meal. They're like, no, you don't. No, nothing said. I'm making it. What do you like? Like, just ask questions, find a way in. But this man has an opportunity to love, and he loves. But the thing is these priests, they missed the point. You see, they could have heard, they should have listened to the scriptures out of 1 Samuel chapter 15:22, where God doesn't desire sacrifice but obedience, or Hosea chapter 6, verse 6, Micah 6:8, all these things where Proverbs also says it, I believe. Where God desires mercy, he desires justice, he desires faithfulness, he desires love, not sacrifice. And we just read about it in Psalm 51. You don't desire offerings or sacrifice. If you did, I'd give it. Here's what you desire. Do what is right. And these people were not just. They were not fair. They were not loving. They were not caring. They were not compassionate. They were not merciful. They were judgmental, distant, uncaring, cold, calculating, but covered it, masqueraded it in the name of their laws. And I'm sorry, this is why religion does get a bad name, because people have used religion as a covering in an incorrect way. Don't ever do that. Because then it causes the world to believe more bad things about religion. Like one you get to combat. I'll just give you an example. Do you know that a lot of people you talk to who don't believe in God, did you know that they believe that most causes of wars are because of religion? But if you look at the wars in history, most historians who study war, the highest percentage you can find that they'll say is attributed to religion is 11%. Most of them go around the 7% range. I'm like, that's pretty far cry from most. But why do they do that? Because they've seen religion dysfunctional in so many areas, and they just start saying, well, it has to be that cause, and because religion's just dysfunctional. And I don't say that's right, but I do say who says the devil plays fair? That's not right. That's not fair. You aren't reporting that right. Like, well, of course not. The devil's making sure they're getting the wrong stuff. Why does that shock you? But your life should be the reason they see things differently. And so I just want to say, are you the good Samaritan? Are you the one walking and being inconvenienced, loving your enemy? Because that's who that man would have been to that Samaritan, an enemy. How their people groups saw each other. Are you doing that? Are you bearing burdens that you can bear? See, this man knew he's like, I have the position, I have the means, take care of this man. So I'm going to get rid of all the laws, all the rituals, all the traditions, get rid of all the animosity, the division, cast it aside. But who's your mommy? Who's your daddy? Figuring out everybody's little thing before you go out and go ahead and help them. Who cares? My big saying is to people is that I love you. They go, why? Because if God sent his only son because he loved you, that tells me everything I need to know about you. You're that valuable. And that was like, if God sees that in you, even if I don't, I'm going to take his word at it. You're worth loving, and I'm going to do my best to love you. I will fall short. I screw up along the way, but I'm going to try. And I always tell, I try to tell my kids that, I try to tell our youth that, I try to tell everybody that, I say, please don't stand at the batter's plate. Don't go up to the plate and just hold the bat and watch the ball fly by. 3 strikes, you're out. Try to swing at least, even if you missed. Well, I missed 3 times. At least you went out swinging. At least you tried. And I would say as a church, what if we fail? Okay. We might come up short, but again, we're called to bear it nonetheless. We're called to love others nonetheless. We're called to go into those places and be the help and so that people don't feel lonely and have hope. To usher it into their lives. And that's what it means to be this idea of living water. Life just comes from it. People have to be around you. Okay? So I'm just going to go ahead today. I'm going to close in prayer. And there is one more song. And what I like to do in this time is you're dismissed. You are always welcome to leave. But we always ask if you can be respectful. This idea of this song is coming back. I'm coming back to the heart of. I'm coming back to God. I'm coming back to Jesus. Some of us, you're like, I've kind of gotten away from that. I've gotten my eyes on other things, and I need to just kind of have a moment. You don't even need to stay for the whole song. I just need to have a moment where I'm like, God, I'm going to make a conscious decision right here, right now. God, I'm coming back to you. I'm sorry for what I have done, what I've made it. Forgive me. That's all you need. That's all you need. But if you're going to talk and all that, take it out there. You can take it outside. It's beautiful. We are in no hurry to get you out. Please stay fellowship. We are about connection with both one another. But those who are going ahead and seeking God, we know that that's the most important connection. So we honor that. We honor one another. We love one another by even letting you do that and making sure that kids don't come running in and out even. Because we're like, no, something serious. We teach our kids then that this is important. That's a good thing. So, Father, we thank you for your word. We thank you for these examples of Scripture. We thank you, Father, for you sending your Son and dismantling legalism and the things in which the Pharisees about Sabbath and God going and not even able to rejoice with somebody who just got healed after 38 years of hopelessness, 38 years of infirmity, 38 years of just loneliness, combating himself in his head, just trying to keep his head above the water. And he was so desperate that he turned to other things that weren't living water. And I know the world is doing the same thing. But God, may our lives be like in Ezekiel 47, having been a part and are a part of the living water, Spirit inside us, letting him flow out of our lives into the lives of others. I pray we would be those people. And for God, those who just need to go ahead and take a moment and say, I just need to get my focus right. I need to get back to the Lord. I want to bear burdens better. I want to be mindful of people. I've been kind of slacking on that. And I feel like I've been rushing through life and the busyness has gotten me just sidetracked and where I just don't see people's needs and I haven't thought about them. I want to go ahead and do I have a sober view of myself? These things, God, I pray for those who stay, as they reflect, reveal what they need to do. Give them a way forward, not just to be convicted, but empowered to live as your Son, Jesus Christ, lived. This is what we desire. And God, we're believing you're going to meet us here to do such a thing. And for those who go, I pray they would go as we all ought to, in the name of Jesus, representing him well in everything we do. And everybody said,